Oh, hello. I didn't see you there, but now I see you all there. Welcome, everyone, to Night Trio of Hot Game Summer. I'm Danielle Riendo. Supposedly, I run the show, sort of. Maybe. Sometimes. I do sometimes. But I am joined by some dear friends and colleagues. Today, we've got Khalif Adams. How are you, Khalif?
Howdy. Excited to be here and rock with you all.
Thank you for being here. I'm very happy. I also have Jordan Mallory, who's a podcast producer here at beautiful Fanbyte. How are you, Jordan?
Hello. I'm good. Earlier today, they lowered a rope down into the podcast mine, and I climbed out to the top and was blinded by the terrible sun. But a small boy ran by, and I said, boy, what day is today? And he said, it's E3, sir. And I said, oh no, and tried to climb back down into the podcast mine, but it was boarded up already. So now I'm here.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. And I'm so glad that you also use references from that beautiful play, because when I do that, nobody knows what I'm talking about. And it's very upsetting. Really? And Steven knows what I'm talking about with that. Steven Strom, managing editor of Fanbyte.com. How are you, Steven?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here finally with the founder of the feast herself, Danielle Riendo, editor-in-chief of Fanbyte.com. I've seen all the geeks and gamers, all the cosplayers, all the I don't know, bitches, lovers, sinners, saints.
Yeah?
I don't know the rest of the lyrics to that song.
There's been a lot of people in your house today.
I do not feel ashamed. I do not feel ashamed.
You don't feel ashamed. That's good. That's good.
I'm so glad. We have Ren in Ren Zone, of course, producing the stream.
Thank you, Ren.
On the Wheels of Steel. That was the reference people used to make.
The ones and twos?
On the ones and twos, the Wheels of Steel, controlling all the stuff. And we also have producer Paul. Paul's in the background. He's in the Hell Zone, I've heard it called. But he will be producing the audio for this beautiful podcast.
Paul is still in the mine.
He's still in the mine. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we're not in the mine. We are mining for content because we are here on night 3. And there was a hodgepodge, I would like to say, today. We're going to go through a few events, but we're also going to look at a couple of kind of several things that we're going to be looking at today. I want to actually start with a nice highlight. Steven played the Sable demo. I want to hear a little bit about this demo. Steven, how was it? It looks beautiful.
It does look beautiful, and that's kind of all I was expecting going in, because looking at the game, Sable is the game that I'm sure Ren will have up on the screen here in a second so people on the video version can see it, but if you haven't seen it, it is a not textureless, but fairly flat textured, open world-ish game where you are going around like a big sort of desert. You're like a little character with a red cape that animates on sort of Into the Spider-Verse style low frame rate against the backdrop of a world that is very colorful, and you can climb up
cel-shaded, one might say.
Cel-shaded-esque, yeah. It's pretty close to a cel-shaded sort of look. Really stands out, pops off the page as you look at it, pops off the screen. You have a cool motorcycle, like a hover cycle, that we got to see a little bit of in the demo that I played earlier today, because I played the demo, which is now available on Steam and Xbox. Nothing else we discovered. And it is more open world adventure game than I was necessarily expecting. I was expecting like Journey. The game has some serious Journey vibes because you're in a big open desert and have a character with a red cloak, but it is way more Breath of the Wild. It like evokes certain things that I think that this game is not necessarily going for, but there are like you climb up a mountain and you have a stamina meter as you climb up things, stuff like that. You can pull up like a binoculars type device and mark things that you see, and then those appear on your map as waypoints. You can go inside of like a little red bubble that functions a lot like the glider in Breath of the Wild. Like there's a lot of that stuff going on.
So who makes
this? Cool. Yeah.
Who does make this? I actually don't know off the top of my head. It's an indie game of some sort. I think it's got some. I think it's going to be on Game Pass though, so I think Microsoft is involved in some way. It's by Raw Fury, is the publisher, who's made a bunch of different things. Shedworks is the developer, and so far, basically all I've seen in the game, at least from the demo that I played, there doesn't seem to be any combat of any kind. It's just kind of like wandering around and talking to people. The tone is very different than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be very meditative and quiet. And there's no voice acting, but there's a lot of dialogue in terms of text on screen. And it's very cheeky and funny.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what I was expecting. No, I was expecting something like sort of Simi Ghibli-esque in that it's like friendly, but also like kind of reverent in a weird way.
Yeah, it's not like Borderlands, you know? It's not like mean.
Sure, it's not crass.
No, it's not crass and like over the top or anything like that, but it is like more lighthearted and kind of goofy in ways. Early on, one of the big things that they've shown off for this game is that cool hover cycle that I mentioned. Early on, when they are introducing you to the hover cycle, they give you like a tutorial hover cycle that is just constantly spewing smoke and sucks and doesn't feel very good to ride.
Yeah.
And when you talk to the person who gives you the motorcycle, who is like, okay, go take this out for you. And they're like, you know, you'll kind of learn all the different mechanisms. You'll figure out how to brake and how to accelerate. It'll be kind of a tutorial, quote unquote, if you will. And your character's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go do that. And then you come back and they're like, oh, that's great. So how was the motorcycle? Did it like burst into flames, explode, or anything like that? And your character you have a bunch of dialogue choices. That's another thing with this game is you can make dialogue choices. I forget who it was. Maybe it was Funke said it was a bit like Kentucky Route Zero. In the way that yeah. Your dialogue choices don't like seem to change anything. It's just totally tonal. It's just like you decide like kind of what tone you're going to have in a conversation. And during that conversation, you could be like, no, the motorcycle ran fine. Or you can be like, wait, was it supposed to light on fire? And your character, like the other guy's like, you would have known if you'd lit on fire even a little bit, probably. And you're like, was that motorcycle dangerous? And he's like, listen... Nothing happened, right? And it's just like, did you give me a motorcycle that might have exploded? And it goes down that route for a little while. So
I thought it was going to be more self-serious. Yeah, that was going to be more self-serious, and it wasn't, which was nice. I thought it was going to be kind of like desolate in that way. And it was nice to see that they kind of went the opposite direction. And you know, you're going to kind of, at least in the beginning parts of the demo, who knows what it turns into, you know, later on in the story. But it did feel like the tone of it going into it was going to be something that was going to be kind of super self-serious, and they just didn't go that route, which was nice. The world looks gorgeous, though. It is a visual masterpiece for a game like this to be made.
Yeah, it does a super cool thing where, because the game is so bright and colorful in almost like pastel, but muted pastels. It's not like pastel in the way that like a what was that Pokemon game with the dancing battle game a couple months ago, where it's like
a few months ago.
Yeah, a few months ago. It's like it's not like something you would see at a Wholesome Direct or something like that in that way. It's brown, it's bright browns and bright yellows and stuff like that in a way that like has a unique look to itself. One cool thing that they do in the demo is like, because everything is so bright, when you're in places that are dark, instead of like making everything actually dark, it's just everything becomes the same color. Everything kind of becomes like a grayish green, and all you can see moving are the outlines. Ka, did you see some of that too?
Yeah, it's really interesting the way that they play with shadow in this game, and shadows and colors, and you know, no primary colors in this game, which I actually really enjoy. It's like mad periwinkle in this piece, which I kind of like. But yeah, I agree. It's interesting in the way that they're playing with color, the way they're playing with that kind of, you know, I forgot what you call that kind of animation, but that Spider-Verse animation kind of deal. And also it feels like the world is going to get bigger in a way where you start to really care about the main character and other characters too, which they kind of cut the demo a little bit short before you really get into the meat of stuff, which was good too.
Yeah,
getting some light Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor type of vibe from it, which is like a little bit serious, but also very playful and really very colorful and a little wacky. So, I mean, I love that game. So,
yeah.
So, Steven, were you talking about Dance ! Pikachu, the electromechanical arcade game released in 1999 by Ban Presto? Is that the one you were talking about?
That's it exactly, Jordan.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you for
found that one. It doesn't look
A few months
anything
ago.
like this. I don't know
Listen,
what you're talking about.
No,
According
I'm
to
saying that
me,
this game
1999
doesn't look
was
like
a few
this.
months ago. So.
No,
Yeah.
it's that game where you have a garden and you grow little guys that run around and then the ooblets. That's the word.
Ooblets? Okay.
Oh, someone in chat also said
Ooblet.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I actually don't have chat up because I'm worried about looking at like my notes and looking at y'all's faces and not like, I don't know, smearing cat poop on my face or something in the middle of this. So like, I'm very, I'm not looking at chat. But chat, I love you and I care about you and I'm glad that you're here.
So chat, you can say anything about Danielle that you want
just
right
by the
now.
way.
That was a lot. Sorry. Anything else on Sable? Anybody else wanted to say a word or two about the Sable demo? It looks great. I can't wait to play it.
When is this coming out and on Xbox and PC, you said?
Yeah, Xbox and PC, and it's on September 23rd of this year, so not too far away.
Oh, that's coming up.
Yeah,
that's going to be as soon as Hot Game Summer is over. It'll be hot fall game.
Christ, yeah.
Hot game fall. You love it. You love it. You love to see it. All right. Moving on from the Sable demo, which is very, very cool. There was also a Halo multiplayer stream from earlier today. Did anybody catch this? Khalif, would you like to talk a little bit about this beautiful multiplayer? Free multiplayer mode, it sounds like.
Free to play multiplayer. Some of that information got shared, earlier in the initial kind of conversation around the multiplayer component of Halo. I think the major components that wound up being in this kind of, what was it, maybe 15-minute video that they kind of shared was, I think yesterday we saw the kind of first conversations around Halo being back in the multiplayer sense. And in this time they talked about the cross progression. It was kind of like a small mini vid doc like you would see from Bungie. But 343 kind of took it and rolled with it. So they talked a little bit about the cross progression aspect of it. The funny thing about Halo multiplayer, which I think was a problem that a lot of people were thinking about going into it, was, are we going to have another Craig incident where the game looks terrible and we don't think it's going to look as good as it did? And I think even in the stuff they showed yesterday, it didn't come through as well. Like, it showed well, but I don't think it showed in terms of the kind of fidelity that we have an expectation for this game to have going forward. And I feel like in this newest video, they actually showed some stuff that looked way better than I thought it was going to. Because the biggest parts of that conversation I think people are really excited about are, how does the armor look? How do the guns sound and shoot? And how does that kind of feel in a game space? And they answered a lot of questions in terms of the armor sets, which are now going to be broken up into a lot of different pieces. It used to be mostly about the helmet and shoulder pads. Now you can change out knee pads, leg pads, shoulder pieces, helmets, all that kind of stuff. Which, if you're going into a Halo universe where you want your Halo Spartan to look different than everybody else's, you're going to be able to do that in a real comprehensive way. That leads into conversations about the battle pass system that they have, which will be one where everything that you wind up getting, none of that stuff will wind up dealing or kind of interfering with gameplay. It'll all be cosmetics in that space, and you'll be able to buy multiple battle passes, but you'll be able to pick which one you want to add progression to. So if you're in like season 1 of your battle pass and you've moved over to season 2, if you're like, man, I didn't grind all the way out to the end of battle pass 1, you'll be able to grind that stuff out so that you'll be able to get the end of the carrot stick piece of cosmetics for your Spartan, which is actually really smart in terms of being able to do that kind of thing. The other part of that I found to be really interesting and super smart was, one of the things that is always a problem for new Halo fans is a lot of folks just don't know how Halo plays. You don't understand power weapons. You don't understand movement. You don't understand how certain guns shoot. They're going to rectify that by giving you this one mode that's called the Academy, which will let you play against bots, but you'll also be able to kind of ramp them up in terms of difficulty. We've seen that in Call of Duty for the past couple of years, and I feel like Call of Duty goes from like, I can shoot you with my eyes closed, to, oh shit, I don't know what to do against you. They're going to be kind of having this in-between space where you'll be able to kind of learn the maps, play around with the weapons and power-ups in that kind of way, which was really cool as well. And lastly, a really important gameplay part that they talked about was usually when you have power-ups on the map, they instantly go off. You instantly are using that power-up. You see that often when it comes to things like overshields and things like that. Now you'll be able to hold on to that item and then use it when you want to use it, which is actually really interesting in terms of the way that game is going to play moving forward. Because, if we're in a battle, and I don't get the chance to use it yet, and you kill me, that item used to just go away. Now it becomes a pickup. So you'll be able to pick that item up off the dead body and use it. So it's going to add this extra layer of risk and reward for when you use your power-ups in that way. And with the thing that they showed yesterday, with there's this one moment in the end of the trailer where one Spartan is going into a battle and he throws a sticky grenade on a plasma shield, on an energy shield, and the energy shield now has physics, or at least the power-ups, it looks to seem like they have physics. So he basically threw it on the grenade, it bounced in the air, he grappled it, grabbed it, and then used it against somebody else. So that's going to
grab the grenade out of the air?
Grab the sword out of the air that bounced off the bounce of the grenade. So the grenade explosion bounced the power-up off the ground, or bounced the power weapon off the ground into the air. And because you can grapple weapons off dead bodies, or it looks like you can even do that with power weapons now, snagged it out of the air and then used it in the middle of a fight. So it's really wild, some of the stuff that they're kind of pulling into the game. You see it right here. This is about, if you're looking at the video parts of it.
He
basically bounced it back himself and grabbed it. That's going to be really interesting from a gameplay standpoint, because now that changes the idea of how do you fight for power weapons? Do you basically play defense and guard against that, or do you blow those things off the map so that other people can't use it? Lastly, the other really cool part of that conference or that conversation was now vehicles can take damage, but damage in different parts of the vehicle. So you can shoot the tires off a Warthog now and it'll handle different.
Wow, it only took 20 years.
I know, 20 years to make those things destructible. And now there's an extra or another kind of Warthog called a Razorback, where you can basically put weapons and power-ups into that. So instead of just having to capture the flag and you're the roaming target holding a flag out, you can put the flag in basically the trunk of the car and then use that and ride around, or other weapons like the gravity hammer and stuff like that. A lot of great information coming out of that small press conference or a small video that I think is going to actually change the way that people come to Halo in a real way. I think it's going to just change the way that people play that game moving forward, which was super cool to see.
Did they say, as somebody who like these days is not quite as into competitive multiplayer as they used to be, did they say anything about Firefight? Is that coming back, or even that Warzone mode that kind of had some PvE elements to it, like anything like that?
They didn't talk about that, but there are elements that feel like they're coming back from Warzone, like ordinances. Like, so you'll have these large vehicles. Also, you're watching this video, you see Oddball is back. They had this Oddball. They had this large vehicle drop a pelican on the map. So now you're still going to have that ability to have weapons kind of come into the map, or vehicles come into the map. Oh, they also talked about drop pods coming into the map as well. So you'll have, in the same way you have an Apex where you'll have a drop pod come into the map, you'll now have those come into the play space as well. So they're trying to figure out ways to keep everyone nimble, because the biggest problem with Halo was always about power weapons and where they were on the map. It's the blessing and the curse of that game, is that once you've lost the ability to go get a power weapon, you have to wait for somebody to die so you can actually wait for it and the people to spawn so you can be able to get it. Now it feels like there's going to be multiple ways to kind of have more armaments come into the play space, so that everyone is going to be able to kind of do things in their best ways. I was really impressed with what they showed in terms of 343 kind of getting in there and showing it off. And it's going to be wild to see what that looks like when it's actually out in the world, because cross progression is going to be in there, so you'll be able to play with PC, play against and with PC and console players together. Your progression is going to move over from console to PC and back and forth, which is also fantastic. and because they now have super widescreen support, I'm going to play that on a big old TV. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. So very excited for what 343 got to share today.
That's
awesome.
I got excited hearing about anything that sounds like immersive sim combat, which I know it's not an immersive sim, but all those like physics elements and all the other playful stuff, I'm kind of like, well, that might get me to actually try this and see like where the limits are of the simulation, because that's my weird brain and how it works. But I like this kind of stuff, and I also like thinking about these kinds of design decisions, like, oh, how do we, deal with something like camping, or all the good stuff is already spawned, so like, how do you have fun with that? So I love that stuff. Yeah, that's really cool.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see what impact free to play, like the successful free to play multiplayer shooters that have happened between Halo 5 coming out and this coming out, what impact that's going to have on the way that they put this thing together, since they made the decision to make this free to play, and people who are really into Apex or really into Fortnite are going to have, even though it's a different IP, they're going to have a lot of expectations about what value they get out of the time that they put into it. And so, Kyle, you talking about the way that they're like not erasing the battle pass at the end of the thing is really interesting, because that's one of the like core money making factor. That's one of the core ways that Fortnite prints money, is they design that battle pass so that it's really difficult to finish in that amount of time, and then they give you the opportunity to pay another $20 to finish it at the end of the battle pass. And so
it's monetizing FOMO, which is like more and more one of the biggest things that like game developers are doing.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see like on the economic side how they go about that, and also just like on the gameplay side, like ammo drops and stuff like you might find in Apex, or how long is it going to be until you can be the Joker like in Fortnite? So we'll have to see to find out. But I haven't played a Halo game in a really long time, but I'm really interested in seeing how this thing shakes out.
The Battle Pass conversation changed a lot of it for me in terms of how I am excited about the future of that franchise, because a person who doesn't have a bunch of time to go through and grind a Battle Pass all the way out, just being able to have purchased it and still have access to it, and I can go through it at my own pace and switch around which ones I'm kind of going for. That removes a lot of that FOMO for me, because I can still get it when I kind of want to. I think where they're going to wind up doing some of that work, though, is when they wind up building out the esports part of that conversation. I think they're going to do some version of like, here's the thing you can only get for a limited time. Maybe you go watch a whole bunch of the Halo competitive series or whatever they're going to call it, and you can maybe get one of those things in like a Twitch drop or something like that. But it will be, they can still do that carried on the stick and still keep people really excited at the fact that they still have their battle passes together. So super cool stuff from them.
That's a good happy medium. Awesome. They can call it the Halo Olympics. How about that?
Spectacular.
Well, from Halo to Amico.
Oh boy.
You like that one?
Wow, Ray, you were right on that.
I was thinking about that for a while.
I didn't watch a fucking second of this.
With the Amico. Yes, it's all right.
I'm so excited to talk about this.
I really want to hear what Jordan feels about this. So what I got from it, I watched the presentation, and this was sort of like, oh, Intellivision's here. Okay, interesting. Tommy Talarico, of course, a industry, a long-standing person in this industry. He's done a lot of animation. He's done a lot of video games. He's been here forever. He is part of this initiative to launch this Wii-like console. So a Wii-like, it seems like. That's what I could get from it. A Wii-ish accessible console for everyone, playing very simple games for all kinds of folks. Jordan, I really want to hear your thoughts on this, because it was a little bit confusing of a presentation, but
thank you. Yeah, it's hard to even know where to start with this thing. So this might be the first place that you've ever heard of or seen this thing, and you would not be blamed for that. So Tommy Talarico, like Danielle said, has been in the industry for a super long time. He is he has like the most video game credits of anybody, because of he's primarily a composer. That's the majority of the work that he's done in the industry. He's also the guy responsible for the Video Games Live concert series. And Okay, so I watched this earlier, and somewhere in this, I thought, okay, I've been watching this for like 10 minutes, and I went down and moused over the progress bar, and it had been 4 minutes. And this presentation that he gave has the exact tone of one of those like sleep apnea machine infomercials that they show on like not public access TV, but
late at night, maybe.
Late night, yeah, like your local Me TV affiliate that shows old movies on the weekends or whatever, and like they do a bunch of infomercials for sleep apnea machines and extended car warranties and stuff like that. That is the tone that Tommy Talarico has throughout this entire video. And so here on the video, we see like all these other names that are attached to it, including David Perry, who you might remember.
That's the thing.
Yeah, David Perry was one of the people responsible for Gaikai, which was an early streaming service technology company that
so it's what
Sony purchased.
Now is based on. Yeah,
Sony purchased
for
it
PlayStation Now.
Yeah, exactly. And so you've got a bunch of names attached to this box that are industry people, but it's been a really long time since they've made video games, and what they actually are now are like business entrepreneurs. And this box comes with 2 controllers that look like Zunes, and they've got a jog wheel.
Yeah.
It's real Zuni. It's got a jog wheel on one side and a touch screen on the other. You can also use your phone as a controller, and it comes with 6 games. There will be more. And Tommy in the video is like, look, we're not going to impress you guys with our teraflops and gigawatts. And like he does the bit about how it's a weak machine that plays casual games. But yeah, like the reason this thing exists is the reason
that was the most pregnant of pauses.
No, hey,
I'm sorry.
Gordon, tell me the reason this thing exists. Justify this thing to me.
Oh my god, that was the best pregnant pause I've ever heard in my life. That is such a good gasp inside.
The reason this is called an Intellivision, I'll start there. Nobody from the original Intellivision team is attached to this thing that I was able to look into. The reason it's called an Intellivision is because that was an affordable IP that is recognizable to the 60-something venture capitalists that they probably went to get funding for this, and you can sell it internationally under a recognizable like American legacy brand. So that's why it's called an Intellivision. I don't know, that this is totally conjecture. I'm guessing it's called an Amico instead of an Amigo because they were worried that they couldn't sell it to white people if they called it an Amigo, so they called it an Amico instead. That's just my 2 cents. There's no evidence of that. I'm just
I mean, if they would have really gotten that credit, they call it a Negro.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, they were originally going to call it. They were originally going to call it the Amigo, but they couldn't afford Giancarlo Esposito. He was too busy with Far Cry 6.
Yeah,
so they
his time's really valuable.
Just couldn't.
So yeah, like there's gonna be like a new Earthworm Jim game for this thing ostensibly, and they didn't say the words Doug Tennapel anywhere in this presentation, but his signature is on the like exclusive artwork print that you can enter a contest to win. So he's attached to this thing somehow. So that sucks.
He's working on that Earthworm Jim game in some capacity, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And while I was looking into the history of this box, like it's been delayed, its release has been delayed for over a year. And in 1999, last year they opened an office in Dubai to also sell some of this stuff. And they've already, like, this thing hasn't been seen by the public as far as I'm aware. And they've already sold like a few tens of thousands of these in like pre-order campaigns through their own crowdfunding, pre-order campaigns through Fig. They said that they had over 100,000 early orders from retailers. So like money has gone into this at some point, and I'm not I'm not willing to go as far as the person who hacked our Twitter account earlier and said that this was a tax scam. Whatever mysterious person was responsible for breaking into our Twitter account and doing that, in case anybody's feeling litigious. Yeah, we'll never know. It's weird. Internet's weird. But yeah, this thing is like, it feels like it's a Wii without any of the personality, but has all the like, hey, grandma, your grandkids will want to spend time with you if you own this, as like one of those plug and play things that they would sell at a pharmacy around the time that the Wii was popular, but not a real Wii. And they touted like the licenses that they have attached to this, which are, they've got like the Harlem Globetrotters was like front and center on their big marquee of, hey, here are the recognizable names that are going to be attached to this thing. And
I see Sesame Street in this B-roll that we're looking at here.
Yeah,
there's some kind of game.
I saw a game for Evel Knievel.
Yeah, and this part of the trailer especially, they're showing a bunch of like dolphins and orcas and stuff swimming around.
There it is.
And Tommy Talarico is like, and we got the original Echo the Dolphin team to come back for our own original Dolphin Quest thing, and totally did not land that. The run cycles on these guys playing soccer is real bad. You can play cornhole on it if you want.
He said cornhole like you've never heard somebody say cornhole in excited terms. Cornhole.
Yeah. So this thing's weird. Like there was nothing like offensive about this presentation, but except for Doug Tendapel's name being in it. But like I just cannot I cannot put my finger on why this feels so gross to me, but it feels so gross.
It's a Kensha Hall product being put on the E3 of now, and like Kensha Hall hasn't been a thing since like 2007, maybe. That was like late Kensha Hall. And for those who are younger than I, Kensha Hall was where like all the kind of extra stuff at E3 was. It would be like, oh, we're making like a off brand Nerf gun that also talks to your PS2 kind of thing. Like that's I'm getting that vibe from this, even though it does say it's groovy. We are saying things are groovy, and I understand that. There is that sense of both Kensha Hall and also there it was. I saw the Earthworm Jim. Kensha Hall, but also like, hey, we're a name, we can get funding. I have a name and I can get funding for this thing, which isn't always. It doesn't always connect that way. It doesn't always work out for folks. So
it feels like the Cricket version of a video game system. It feels like the old phone that your grandma has with the big ass buttons because she can't see no more, but in video game form. And I just don't know what to do with it.
And to a certain degree, like a lot of these things already exist. Like these things come and go en masse is part of it too. Like the thing is that all the places that these things used to live quarantined away from the rest of us, especially us older folk, no longer get quarantined away in mall kiosks and in Kensha Hall anymore, because those things don't exist anymore. So everything is online. So everything kind of has this weird air. I feel like we're in this sort of like strange middle ground right now where nobody is quite sure how important something is going to be, because everything is just online during the same period of time. So it's like everything gets the same amount of oxygen, even though we know that it's probably not going to be important, but it's also not on screen it's not like running at the same time as the Nintendo thing. So I guess we might as well look at it. Like we'll talk about this in a little bit. Kyle watched it, but the Take-Two thing is in a similar situation here, where the Take-Two presentation today was just very much not like like an E3 press conference, like what we expect from it at this point. But everybody was expecting it to be that up until like 24 hours beforehand, and nobody was quite sure what to do with it at first. And I think this is in a similar situation where it's just like, yeah, again, like you said, Danielle, this would have been sectioned away at Kensha Hall, but now it just feels like any other thing. So we're talking about it alongside all the other things.
The interesting part about all of this is, really quick, I'll just say the interesting part about this is that usually there's a space where you can say, I know this thing exists, but it's not for me. And everyone can say, okay, that's reasonable. This is a thing that exists and I don't know who it's for.
Yeah.
Which is the thing that bugs me out the most about it. Is like I literally just don't know what this market is supposed to be. It is kind of like what you said, Danielle. The whole like, I bring this over to grandma's house, or grandma has it for me when the kids come over as the thing to do when she doesn't want to talk to them. She wants to go smoke weed outside. Like that's the thing that you give the kids to go do. But like
that's literally
besides that, I don't know what else the thing is for.
Yeah,
that's literally the pitch that Tommy makes, is that when your grandparents come over, they have here's a video game that you can play with them. Like he says, this is complimentary to your real video game console that you have. He basically says, Imran in our chat watching live on twitch.tv/fanbyte if you want to watch live. He says, why would you make your own video game console? It sounds like it sucks ass. That's the thing. No sane person who actually wants to make video games would go to the lengths of making their own video game console. That's ludicrous. You would have to be totally out of your gourd to think that it's a good idea to make your own video game console. The only reason why you would do that is because you want to take a name like in television, go talk to a bunch of people who remember the name and get money from them, and then 4 years down the road, put out this thing that like you'll sell 200,000.
I think you figured it out.
Here's my one point. The thing that I think you're absolutely right, Jordo. The thing that I actually give them some respect on is I can at least appreciate one, all the stock photos that they got of people excited beyond belief, which is unreasonable and just doesn't make sense. Two, you would think a person who has put together video games live would have better lighting in this press conference. Three, the other part of this that bugs me out is I actually give Tommy some credit, because at least he and the other folks who are in this space have some credibility in the video game market to be able to kind of do this, as opposed to folks like Soulja Boy, who was trying to make the Soulja Boy console.
The Soulja Boy console. Holy shit.
So like to a certain extent, I'm kind of not as mad in comparison to Soulja Boy, who has literally no reason to make a console. But this, again, it fits into that space of, like, what are we going to do with this thing? It also is like, are enough of these going to be like the ET cartridges from the Atari? Are these going to wind up in a landfill somewhere and no one's going to know what the hell happened to all of these? It's just super weird.
I wonder a lot of the games going to produce. Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to say, with some of the games that I'm looking at here, what if Fanbyte made a game for this? Like, what if we
totally could? We absolutely could. With like,
these are like fire up Unity.
Close this VMix call.
We could make a match 3, and it's like match 3 Fanbots, and like maybe we can like maybe we could use that to like promote our brand.
Ren could probably have that done before the stream's over.
I'm thinking. I'm just saying. Like I'm just pitching this as like, hey, maybe this is a good way for websites to get their stuff out by making a video game and putting it on, the Amico.
The Intellivision Amico.
I'm thinking out of the box here. Okay, like I don't have the office in Dubai, but I'm trying to think out of the box.
And that's why you're
do
in
a lot
charge,
of stuff with that touchscreen. That touchscreen could totally do some cool stuff. We'll figure it out.
It could.
It's just like a Switch.
legitimately, a good designer can make something cool with almost anything, right?
Totally.
Like with any media. Frankly, you could make a cool game with cardboard and a piece of rope. Like you could, right? It's possible, but
agreed.
I will allow for like, hey, what if somebody makes a bomb? All right, here's an example. The Ouya had Towerfall, right? Like
yeah,
that was on Ouya before anything else, and that's a great game. And like, yes, it is absolutely always possible for something truly interesting and awesome and very, very cool to come out of a strange little console, I guess.
Do you think the reason this thing has touchscreen controllers like that is actually because it is just from out of the box designed for when in 5 years nobody remembers this thing ever happened? They put out this like Missile Command reboot on a phone.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Like part of the pitch is the cross compatibility of it. Comes with these two controllers, but you can also just Bluetooth your phone to it, and that works also. So like the you'll see in this video that like people will hold these controllers in any number of orientations with the jog wheel on the left or right side. So that thing is totally superfluous. Like, I would assume the majority of these components are off the shelf. And one last thing I wanted to bring up, and then we can move on. I wanted to know what this runs on. And
like Android or something?
Yeah, and I looked into it, and the answer that Tommy Talarico gave in an interview a couple of years ago, he said that it is a Linux Android hybrid OS, he said that Linux is the flexible part and Android is the solid part, and that's bullshit because Android is Linux already. So you can't have a hybrid between two things that are the same thing. It's a Linux hybrid is what he created here.
I also love the idea that like Android, this famously rigid and like
reliable, totally non-malleable platform.
This very locked down service that everybody uses. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I just thought about what this really reminds me of. This reminds me of every game that we saw on Nick Arcade that they used to play.
Yeah.
This is exactly what
real Nick Arcade vibe here.
This is exactly every mini game from Nick Arcade. This is exactly what this is.
Yes. Yeah.
So in conclusion, when Tommy shows up during commercial breaks on Svengoolie and he wants to sell you the Intellivision Amico, don't.
Jordan, I'm really glad you and I have the exact same touchstone for MeTV.
Yeah, Svengoolie's great. Svengoolie rules. That guy, he's been doing it for like 20 years or something. He's a good host. Yeah. See some cool movies on there. Check out Svengoolie on your local MeTV affiliate. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. Not sponsored content.
Yeah, they don't pay us.
Yeah, Svengoolie. Get on the phone.
Hey, maybe, I said, maybe we make a game for this. Maybe we get him on the phone. Like, we're making deals. We're making things happen.
Svengoolie, come on cable.
Honestly, I would listen to that. I would be excited for that. I do want to talk about. Go ahead. There was more. Was there more?
No, I was just sighing to myself and saying, "Well then." Sorry, please continue.
Well then, no, you're good. I didn't want to railroad over any of your thoughts. Like that's not how we do things here. I do want to talk a little bit about the Take-Two presentation, which I kind of loved. I'm just not gonna lie, I sort of loved this because this felt like a low-key little bit of a flex. Take-Two, instead of talking about any new games or frankly things you normally hear about at E3, they used it to present a panel on diversity and on diversity in the industry, and frankly things like pipelines through education into the industry. Now, I will say, I watched it and personally felt like, okay, this is awesome. It was probably a little too short for each person to really speak. I think there were about 7 or 8 panelists who were there, but the folks they got were awesome. And it was kind of like, I will just admit, I saw some heated gamer friends just being very upset they weren't hearing about Take-Two games, and instead there's what is this? And I was kind of like, nice. I see you nodding along, Khalif. Do you want to talk about this a little bit? I appreciated the flex. I thought it was kind of cool, but yeah.
Really quickly, because it was literally my favorite part of today's coverage of everything that happened today. It was the best press conference of the day, and maybe of E3 to be fair. I tweeted out in the most snarky way. Everyone tuned up, got up really early to watch GTA, and all they got was D&I. It was amazing. It was the best thing on the planet to see so many people pissed out of their minds being mad about why are they talking about D&I? Why are they talking about all this diversity stuff? Why are they having these conversations? I just want to see video games all the time. And it was pretty amazing. They had some great folks in that lineup. Gordon Bellamy, who is now over at Netflix, Susanna Pollock, who runs Game for Change. There were a bunch of folks in the conversation who were there, who were brilliant and brought some really good commentary to the conversation. But it was such a dope move to be able to just see everybody be as mad because they weren't going to get their GTA in the morning, and see so many people just be like, well, what were they supposed to do right now? And I was like, talk about whatever the hell they want. Do what you want. You have a slot. Do what you want. So it was an interesting time to see people be really kind of upset and in bewilderment about what happened during that part of the day.
Yeah, and I really liked the actual content. I did, of course, wish that everybody had a little more time. It was very much like, okay, talk, just because it was like several people that were on there, and I know they probably had a mandate to be like, okay, you've got like 30 seconds like to like say everything that you can, kind of thing, which I'm always like, no, I want to hear more from these folks because they are incredible and super cool. And like they there was some really good content to it. They did talk about pipelines, they did talk about potential solutions for why folks get lost in pipelines. But yeah, so it's always like that. I appreciated that flex so much. Steven, go ahead. Sounds like you wanted to say something.
Oh, I don't know that I have a ton to add. Just because I didn't watch the event, I do just like find it interesting. I'm curious, and like this is genuine curiosity. This is not like snark about this, but I am curious like how things have changed at Take-Two when Take-Two was like, you know, with Rockstar and like the Rockstar spouses stuff back in the day, the stuff that happened around like the Australian teams on LA Noire. That was obviously years ago at this point, but I'm very curious to wonder like how corporate culture and such has changed over there, or not changed, as the case may be, to make it a better working environment for people, or you know how much of this is just public facing grandstanding. But I don't feel like we've recently heard a ton of like really terrible stories out of Take-Two in a time where more and more of that is becoming very public and much more difficult to keep under wraps. So yeah, I'm actually genuinely very interested, and I'd be interested to hear people who work there in a non at E3 presentation type way talk about those stories and talk about like what they think of working at that place.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I also agree. Yeah. Did anybody want to add anything about that before we on, or
whoever's running the Fanbyte account in our Twitch chat right now just said, I heard Take-Two pushed over an old woman, allegedly. So I'm guessing that's Nikki.
Nikki?
So that's allegedly. Allegedly pushed over an old woman. Allegedly.
Gotcha. Well,
it's not illegal if you say allegedly. So
it's true. That's how libel laws work.
Well, unlike Nikki, LB, and John, I don't live in Great Britain, so I don't know how they work. I'm sorry. Y'all should listen to Friends Reunion. I'm just going to say it. Just listen to Friends Reunion. It's a beautiful podcast where beautiful people do beautiful things. I mean beautiful humans. I don't mean, aesthetically speaking. Aesthetically speaking, though.
Wow, Danielle, just fucking putting them on blast.
I'm saying that I wouldn't. I am not going to say that about my coworkers. My colleagues are beautiful humans in every way.
Yeah, absolutely. In
every way. That's what I was trying to say there.
In every way. Okay.
I was just trying to go with the aesthetic thing because we then went into really pretty indie games. Here we go. Real pretty indie games. There's like a couple that I saw. So the indie showcase was just like boom, 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 boom. A whole bunch of trailers of indie games, many of which were very pretty. Life Slide was one that definitely caught my eye. This kind of looks like a Pilot Wings, but indie, and low poly, pretty. You're flying around. There's a whole lot of flying around. I don't know if there's much more going on but flying around, but that's pretty cool. I'm into that. I like that.
Yeah. Reminds me a bit of Flower. Remember Flower?
Yeah, Flower.
Oh, yeah. I loved Flower.
That game was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So
bit of Flower, bit of Race the Sun, maybe a little bit in there as well.
Oh yeah, Race the Sun was really good too.
Yeah.
Stephen with the deep indie flying around low poly environment polls.
Like I have a niche and I exploit it as best as I can. Speaking of niches that I can exploit, I can talk a tiny bit about Terra Invicta, which I think was at the same thing.
Please
it's at least
do.
in
I
the
think
same
it was
section of our
next.
notes.
Yeah.
I did not see. They didn't show a ton of Terra Invicta during this thing. Like Terra Invicta was. They did a weird thing where it's just like, here's the strategy game section where we're going to show 3 strategy games all right next to each other, and we're only going to show 15 seconds of each of them because it almost felt like they were like, all right, we'll get this nerd shit out of the way so that you people can get back to your guns and your fucking cool little kitty cats or whatever.
Kitty cats.
Your kitty cat games.
I've had one to sleep on my. Yeah.
Oh yeah, is Ori with you right now?
Well, Finn has been asleep on the side of my bed this entire time. I just want to point her out.
Fantastic.
Anyway, please go on.
No, I always want to hear about kitty cats. I don't know that there's any cat people in any of these games, but the one that I know the most about is Terra Invicta, which is people who watch other Fanbyte.com streams might know that I've been playing some XCOM 2 War of the Chosen on twitch.tv/fanbyte for a little while now. And the team that makes the very popular long war mods for XCOM and XCOM 2 is spun off to go make their own video game, and it's called Terra Invicta. And it is about a bunch of aliens coming to Earth, and Earth basically trying to respond to that. They are calling it a grand strategy game, which would be like your Crusader Kings or your Stellaris, but on a much smaller scale than a Stellaris anyway, much bigger scale than Crusader Kings, because you are basically moving across the human solar system, mining asteroids, doing all this stuff, trying to build up resources and political clout among the 6 different factions to save humanity. In whatever way that means. There's like one faction where it's like they worship the aliens and want the aliens to take over. So if you play as them, you basically try and convince humanity to let the aliens ascend humanity. Or there's a faction that's like, we should just leave Earth altogether, give it to the aliens, let's just fucking dip. It's got a very clean look to it. I'm very curious to see how it actually plays. But, you know.
I like a good strategy.
Yeah, you do like a good strategy. You like an Into the Breach, I've heard.
I do.
You like a Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Very similar game.
I sure do. I mean, hey, they scratch the same itch. It's fine. They don't look the same, but they scratch the same itch, you know.
For sure.
So yeah.
That Frontier Falling game looked really cool too. That game looked really, really pretty from an RTS
totally.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was in the same thing. That seemed like it's more of a you're moving fleet, like it's fleet battles RTS type thing, almost a little bit like that Battlestar Galactica Deadlock game that came out a few years ago. That was like secretly very good.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot all about that. Yeah,
I remember hearing a bit about that. This also really stuck out to me. Fallen Aces. This is a crime noir FPS. Do you know how hard it is for me to say the word noir? It's hard. It's very difficult.
It's some kind of noir.
Crime noir. But it has a look. It has a look to it. There's a lot of like punching guys in that funky little 2D. Steven, this is a game you played a couple of years back that I really liked. I think you liked it, maybe not as much as me, but it had a similar kind of look to it. This sort of cartoon, cell shaded, almost as if it's like really flat characters walking towards you. But you are
the Bastards game.
Void Bastards,
one, right? Void Bastards, yeah.
Which I love. I think I 100%ed that game. I
really
loved
great.
it. Yeah,
the game is fantastic.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I found it a little bit grindy. Is this the same developer? It's a very similar art style.
No, I don't think it is. It's just that style. That's right where my brain went. It's not in space. This looks like it's a 30s like pulp detective kind of dealio going on. But it has that feeling that I don't see tons of. That super not silhouetted. I'm thinking of the wrong word. But like when it's a 2D character on a 3D plane, basically.
It's like 90s Doom.
Yeah, exactly. It's 2D objects in a 3D environment.
Yeah, that billboarding effect or whatever it's called. It's really, it's a cool look. It's interesting. And there's also just like a lot of like, I don't know, weird comedy. There's an animation here where the guy or person is like kicking down the door and the foot just looks like, it's like a good animation. It's a nice animation. I appreciate that in a trailer. So I don't know much about this. I just think it looked cool. So
I already, just seeing this footage, I think this might be up your alley, Danielle, because I see like some of the weird sort of immersive sim-y interactions of like you kick a guy and there's a passing trolley and you kick a guy into the trolley and he just gets fucking squashed. Like
it's the trolley problem, you know?
Yeah, that's the trolley problem.
That's the trolley problem.
There it is, Fallen Aces.
I kind of like the fact that you can there's like contextual damage. So like one guy got shot in the crotch and he like held his crotch. Like, oh, that's interesting. I've never seen someone do that with that kind of art style before. That's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked pretty awesome. I wanted to highlight a game called Moolander.
I kept hearing so much about this all day today. I just didn't see
Moolander.
I just saw the trailer and it looks like a 2D shooter or platformer, and it's all like weird sci-fi. It's really like okay, there's like fucked up cows, there's fucked up all kinds of stuff, all mutants, like everything's all a little messed up. This is a fucked up cow. That's a fucked up cow.
Wow,
that
cow
has
spikes. That cow's real fucked up.
it.
Yeah. I thought this was going to be about a cow that can't turn left.
Oh no!
Well, it's a 2D game, so like they just maybe flip side to side. It's not exactly a turn.
You got to keep going right. You can never go left.
That's pretty great.
It just has a look to it. I like this.
Yeah, this looks nuts.
This would be perfect on the Amico.
Hey, they got to call each other.
You know what this looks a little bit like, but like much more ridiculous version of? Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet. Remember that?
Yes.
I remember that
arcade game. Yeah.
Remember when Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet had a toy deal with Del Taco?
No.
What?
You remember that?
No.
What?
That happened here in America.
What?
Yeah.
Only thing I remember about Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet it was made by the guy who animated the water in the Iron Giant. That's what I remember.
Incredible. That's what up. You know what? I love shit like. Oh, that's a fucked up cow.
Yo, I don't like any of these cows. Yo, fuck these cows. I don't like any of these cows.
Coming out on everything spring 2022.
I don't like it.
I don't know if we have the trailer for it, but I did think Tunguska: The Visitation looked interesting. That kind of has like a survival horror, like PS2, maybe even PS1 kind of vibe. But again, this is all just looking at stuff and just saying, hey, this jumped out at me. This aesthetic is interesting. This gameplay might be fun. That's very much what the indie showcase was to me. It was like, bunch of stuff. Take a look. All right. Thank you, Ren, our producer. Thank you so much. This is Tunguska, I think. It just has a look.
Shotgun
again,
blast. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this isometric kind of thing. I've seen a lot of tiny developers do, not exactly this, but do like PS1 aesthetics. The beginning of this trailer looks like a survival sim, but the end of the trailer starts to look like survival horror. There's a lot of monsters and stuff. So it's not just like sort of the general, okay, you got to craft, your meal packs or whatever. It's more like, oh, you got to actually not, die with the monsters come get you. So,
but at the same time, like, I feel like so many games that go for that PlayStation 1 look are going for like you see a lot of first person shooters like that. You see a lot of like the haunted PS1 demo disc type games. This is like Crusader No Remorse or Commandos or Desperados. Those top down isometric games.
Yeah, true.
That's a very different style to it.
Yeah. Hey, it could be cool. It's the indie showcase, and those are the games that really jumped out to me. I don't know if other folks had any other things that jumped out to you at the indie showcase, or if you saw it. There's been a lot of games. It's been a lot of games lately, so I'm not, no judgment.
There's been a lot. I didn't get a chance to check any of these out, unfortunately. This looks really cool, though. I think out of the ones that you've shown us, that Paper Airplane game from the beginning looked really serene. Yeah.
Yeah. I truly love games like that, especially nowadays, where I'm like, I just need to chill. Oh, is this Neko Ghost Jump? I think we've got Neko Ghost Jump here as well, which is both a 2D and 3D platformer.
Wow.
Oh, crazy.
Kind of doing that thing, which is pretty cool. The sort of mischief makers, not exactly mischief makers. Yeah. Yeah, it's got a cat, which, I can ask my cat. What do you think, Finn? What do you think? I don't know.
What does Finn think? Nothing?
Wow, Jordan fucking putting Daniel's cat on blast.
I'm just saying, he's on the call, or she's on the call. They need to be contributing.
She just wants to look pretty. I don't know. I can't
She's pulling the paycheck.
Interpret.
She needs to be part of the conversation.
Just wants to be on the call, part of the conversation, but just wants to look pretty. I can relate. For God's sake.
we all understand.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There was this Extra Galactica as well, which also has quite a look. I could not completely suss out what the gameplay would be from this trailer. Did look actiony. It looked adventure-y. There are segments that look almost like, are you shooting something through like a maze? And segments that look like, hey, hanging out, chilling, doing some adventure gamey stuff, which is cool. There's also football.
I'm sorry. Now it says to play football? What?
It does. There's something about football. Don't quite understand it yet, but I'm interested. Hey, it got my attention.
It looks cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I like this look. I like the chunky pixels. I personally do enjoy that look. And when it's married with interesting gameplay, hey, you might have me. So exactly. We might be losing Steven, and it's really okay.
No, I just forgot. I literally just the other night somebody commented, "Hey, your setup looks great. Your ring light is really working. The camera is awesome. Just remember that when you record these night shows, that it becomes dusk when where you are midway through the recording. So you should have a light on behind you when that happens, because it gets dark and the sunlight in front of me stops coming in here. And that has happened again. So it's nice and dark in here with a big burning light in my face. So it's maybe exhausting my eyes faster than it normally should have. Now, did I remember to fix that? No.
It's E3, okay? I'm not like stress crying. I'm not stress crying and screaming, so I'm happy. Like, we're doing great. All right, let's move on to Capcom.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Capcom. I think we're ready for Capcom. Are we ready for a Capcom collab? Now,
I mean, yeah.
Who's ready for Capcom? Who's ready for the Capsule Commander?
Ow!
All right. I'm going to be honest, Steven. I know less than nothing about Monster Hunter. Do you want to talk a little bit about Monster Hunter? Do you want to tell us what you saw with the monsters and the hunting?
Honestly, not a fucking lot. I say this as somebody who loves Monster Hunter Rise, who played the first Monster Hunter stories. The consensus on Twitter was that this Capcom event was not very good or interesting. And yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with the Monster Hunter stuff that was shown, because they had previously shown a roadmap for Monster Hunter Rise that kind of explained, like, hey, the upcoming next couple of updates here aren't going to be as big as the previous updates, which added new monsters, new armor, new weapons, all the good stuff that you want from a big, meaty, like, version 0.0 update. And then it said, okay.
They got leather pants. I'm so sorry.
Pants and shades. Black leather legs.
Yeah, black leather legs. I do, honestly, like, as somebody who used the Dante from Devil May Cry black leather pants cosmetic armor in Monster Hunter World a lot on my fashion in that game, I'm excited for that part.
Excellent.
The rest of it is it's just like they had already shown a roadmap, and it's a more detailed roadmap now, but it's still just really showing like very small incremental updates. Like, here'll be a little mission where you fight a monster that you already know, and you'll get some sunglasses. And it's like, okay, that's cool, but like, it's not particularly exciting, and it doesn't look like there's anything particularly exciting coming for a while, if that roadmap is to be believed. Which is a bit of a bummer.
Do you remember when, before this was officially announced, there was that Capcom leak and people were talking about Rise also being a PC game? Do you remember that? You think that they might be holding on to some of that stuff for an eventual PC release so that they can get to parity between those versions earlier? Because for a long time, it was that the PC version of Monster Hunter World came out 6 months after the console version, and those updates were 6 months behind for like almost a full year until they were able to reach parity between those two versions.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even just like from that leak. We actually were one of the people who got the early scoop on the PC version official announcement.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, I missed that.
No, I had an interview with a couple of the Monster Hunter Rise developers, and they dropped that news for me. So you can read about that on Fanbyte.com. That does make a lot of sense, though, because one of the things I wrote about most, the other thing you could read about on Fanbyte.com, is Monster Hunter Rise at launch did not feel like a finished game. It felt like a game that they had to get out the door before Q1 of 2021, because it came out in like March, before to meet like fiscal measurements and stuff like that. Sure. And the updates that have come previously feel like, okay, now this feels like it has a complete like story campaign. It feels like it got to where it wanted to be. And then if they are now saying, okay, that's the base game and everything that comes after will be extra stuff, if you're starting from that point on the PC version, that makes a lot more sense. If that's what they're going into this thinking. And that is supposed to be... God, we have the release date for the PC on the site, but I forget. It's not too far off now at this point, though, because the game has been out since March. So we're coming around the corner here. So yeah, hopefully there will be more stuff around that PC version for sure. At the very least, there will be mods. People modded the hell out of Monster Hunter World. So.
Oh God,
red leather pants.
Red leather pants.
And the monsters. Yeah. Can the monsters wear the leather pants? Can you put like your Baratheon? Is that a monster? Can you put,
Robert Baratheon.
He's here. He's wearing
Game
red
of Thrones'
pants.
own
From House Baratheon.
Well, you don't like that one. You can't put Targaryen the dragon and like the leather pants. Like
Danielle, you can put like you get into PC modding. You go to the Steam Workshop. You can put any character you want in leather pants. You can put the Digimon that everybody wants to fuck. You can do anything you want.
Steven, that's like 15 Digimon.
Oh, my face hurts.
Which one?
Wait, who's
You're gonna have to be way more specific.
What?
Is it the one that's kind of like a fox? The one that looks like a human lady? There's a bunch.
It's the fox one. Come on.
Okay. Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I guess speaking of people that people are horny for, Resident Evil Village is getting some DLC. We don't know much about it.
A plus. Yeah, they basically just said, "Hey, DLC exists for this game."
We haven't started.
We're making it.
Yeah.
By popular demand, we're gonna make it.
What are the odds that it is Lady Dimitrescu Gaiden, right? Because like they said that they did not expect people to love that character as much as they did, and that she totally popped off in that after that initial trailer. And she is one of 4 or 5 zone bosses that have part of Dracula's body that you need to resurrect him or whatever the fuck it is that you do in that game.
Hey Jordan, I don't know if you've played that game. You're not as far off as you think you are.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you're right.
I've been watching a lot of Castlevania games being streamed lately, though. But yeah, my gut just says that they made a hard pivot after they saw how popular that lady is and are doing some DLC about her. I have nothing to be said on.
They gotta.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, they absolutely could. There's room there because all of those characters, not just Lady Dimitrescu, but like basically every character in that game has a bunch of background story that is hinted at in that game that you don't really see a lot of. There's like Lady Dimitrescu has like a whole thing about how because they all have like powers, like various different weird like Resident Evil bioweapon powers, and you never really see any kind of story about like who they were before they got those powers and like why.
Interesting.
I would like to see them do DLC around the daughters. Would be super cool because they didn't get any love. They kind of didn't really have a purpose. I want to see you at least be able to. Yeah, right. That's true. And they need to like put some like Ethan Hand's DLC in there. They got to fix his hands.
What if you had like? What if there was an option like cosmetics that you could like when Ethan gets his hand chopped off, you can just like and like just replace it with different hands. Like you could have
hands
right
there. Yeah.
Or give him like a spork on the end of.
Give him just stab a spork in there.
Yeah,
I mean, why not?
He'd be better off.
He'd be useful at that point.
He'd be
a lot.
He'd be better off.
Yeah, it's just wild though. I want to see because they're gonna go nuts with it and do something super super wild, which I love about them. I am not excited about the online version that they're gonna drop next month because I have a feeling that is going to be terrible. They have an online component that they're going to be doing next month.
Oh my god, that multiplayer thing? They're still doing that?
Yes,
totally
they're still
forgot
doing
about that game.
I mean, if you raise your hand if you played a good online Resident Evil game yet. I mean, you know what they could do? They could put that on the Amico, and I think it would sell gangbusters.
Listen,
the
grandma's
to play with your
grandparents. Yeah, grandma needs a little lady in her life. That's all it is.
Saying,
my 9-foot
they wear the same hats.
Over. We don't have any video games to play with.
They do wear the same hats.
They do wear the same hats. That's a grandma ass hat. Lady D likes a grandma ass hat. It is for real, for real. Put her in some black leather pants, and then you're perfect. It'll be fantastic. Right? Best DLC. You have the crossover. It works.
Yeah, Ren from the Ren Zone says the Revelations multiplayer was not bad, and then 3 exclamation points.
All right,
that is tomfoolery, Ren.
We've got fighting words today here in Night Trio.
We're gonna chat.
It's day 500 of E3 2021. I think we're all a little punchy.
No
but
doubt.
While we're still talking about Capcom, before we move on,
please,
I want everybody's, because the third thing they talked about this thing, well, they talked about Resident Evil briefly. They talked about Monster Hunter. They recapped a bunch of stuff we already knew about that new Ace Attorney's game that has Herlock Sholmes in it, or whatever the fuck his name is.
Herlock Sholmes. Put respect on his name. He's a great detective.
I refuse. And they talked about the Street Fighter V World Tour esports tournament thing that they're going to be doing this year. I want predictions from everybody. How long is it going to be until Capcom puts out another fighting game? Chat, play along.
6 Baratheon years.
6 Baratheon years from Danielle. Okay.
I mean, like for real prediction, I think it would have to be probably another 2 years though.
Yeah,
because I feel like for them the thing that was the thing that hamstrung them was online code, which basically cost why can't I think of his name right now with the Blanca toy all the time?
Yoshinori Ono.
Yes, Ono-san basically lost his job because of that. For the most part, it was like the online stuff wasn't working well. Or at least that was. I mean, I'm not going to say that that's the actual direct wing, but that felt like from the community was the biggest problem. He was at the head of that conversation for them not going to roll back netcode for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I feel like the conversation now is broadened out because of what we've seen in there with Guilty Gear Strive now being out and that also being part of, and then also Virtual Fighter now coming out. You're seeing this bunch of fighting games now coming out that people are starting to get back into and starting to care about. It's going to move the conversation for Street Fighter forward in a way that's going to kind of accelerate that because they have to keep up at this point. So probably in the next couple of years, I think.
Cool. Steven?
Yeah, I actually think Ka made some like incredibly salient points there about like the other games kind of giving them a run for their money at this point. I think a lot of people were really caught off. Well, literally everyone was really caught off guard about the COVID situation. But I think fighting games were especially hit hard because fighting games so often, one of the reasons that so many people have bad netcode in fighting games is because they're like, well, fuck you, go play at a tournament, go play at Evo or whatever, play locally. That's how this is meant to be played. We don't give a shit about the netcode. And then COVID happened and nobody could play locally, and you saw that destroy, like, remember Grand Blue Versus? Remember that the people who made Guilty Gear a week ago had another game that came out and nobody's talking about it because it had bad netcode and it came out right at the height of COVID. And it's a crying shame because that game was like really, really cool, but like, nobody fucking remembers it at this point. And like I hope with the way that Guilty Gear Strive has been going on the online front, not necessarily with the netcode. The netcode seems like it's probably fine, but
it's great. It's really good.
Oh, good. Glad to hear that. But because the other thing I've seen about that game's multiplayer is that so many people are playing it that the game's server capacity maxed out and nobody could play matches a day or two ago because they just like ran out of space.
Yeah, it's the most popular fighting game that's ever been on Twitch, not Twitch. I'm not Twitch. I'm sorry, I misspoke. The most popular fighting game that's ever been on Steam in terms of concurrent players. More than Tekken 6 or Street Fighter 5 or anything else, basically. And so the like console launch was about what they expected, and then the PC launch happened a few days afterwards. And they had like over 30,000 concurrent players, which is huge numbers for PC fighting games. And there have been a lot of connection issues because of that. When it does work though, those online matches are flawless. Like they may as well be local, unless you're playing at 4K, in which case it breaks the whole game for both people. So don't play at 4K, but otherwise it's extremely functional. We had a lot of guesses of 4 years, 3 years, 5 years in chat. Paul says 20 years. And
LeBron James too.
LeBron James, yes. So it'll be interesting. My guess was a far more cynical, like 8 years, but after hearing Ka's points, I'm revising that down to like 3 or 4. I think somewhere in there. I think it's going to be a Street Fighter. I don't think we're going to see something that's not Street Fighter from Capcom for a long time. Maybe in 8 years we'll get a Darkstalkers. No, it's they wouldn't take the risk. They're like Capcom is hugely risk averse right now, and like that's why they're putting so much effort into Monster Hunter and Resident Evil, and those games are really good, but that's their focus because that's what's safe and is popular right now.
That's very fair. That's a good point.
I just hope that when we do, whenever it is, whether in 2 years or 10, I do hope that the ripple effect of, you know, things happening the way that they did, you know, in one positive thing, we can see out of it is like more fighting games taking like netcode seriously, and making those games more approachable and accessible to a wider audience of people, you know?
Yeah, I don't want to get too in the weeds about rollback netcode because that's not what this show is. Send an email to but this is the
Yoshinori Ono.
Yoshinori Ono, come on K-Hole. This is the first fighting game from a major Japanese developer that has rollback in it, and that's like a huge deal. And I think that them seeing how positive the critical and player response has been to that is going to make a lot of changes happen.
Yes. Awesome. Anything else on Capcom? Capsule Commanders?
I mean, we didn't really see a ton of new stuff from it, but I'm just stoked for another Ace Attorney game. I love Ace Attorney, and we haven't had a new one since that last 3DS game, which I pitched you and Laura Miche a feature about back when I was freelancing for Zam.com. So it's been a minute.
Where?
Hell yeah.
Who's ever heard of it? It's lost in the annals. What's that?
Herlock
Sholmes. What a great website,
Steven.
Herlock Sholmes.
Yeah,
that's a fucking lizard ass
World
of Warcraft.
Yeah. I was going to say that's the sort of thing I would like. Yeah, that would be a name I would think was the real thing, and I'd be like, it's Herlock. What is wrong with you people? Herlock Sholmes, consulting detectives, one of the greatest games. Wait, why don't you guys read literature? And then I would be wrong, and I would be very upset, and I would hang my head in shame.
Oh.
No, it just looks good. These are for people who don't know. Like I'll just very quickly move explain it, and then we can move on. But they're just like two new, not new Ace Attorney games, but two Ace Attorney games that are set in the Victorian era England, and I forget which era that matches up with in Japan, but it's like 1800s Ace Attorney games where you play as the ancestor of Phoenix Wright, who is bumping around with a guy named Herlock Sholmes, who, if you can believe it, is a detective in England. And they were only released in Japan previously. They never had an English translation, and we haven't had a new Ace Attorney game in about 5 years now. So it's, for a lot of people, going to be a new Ace Attorney experience, and they're coming out as one collection on Switch, I think. So I'm very excited because I love those games.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm excited to play it on Switch because I can't physically, with how messed up my wrist is, I can't physically play 3DS games anymore. It's just not happening. But with the Switch, I can put it on a little dock. I can put it on my little desk. I can play it, and it's beautiful. It's awesome.
Yeah. Those first three, they have not ported most of the the 3D games, the most recent Ace Attorney games, to anything else, really. But the first three Ace Attorney games are on Switch now as well, if you ever wanted to check those out.
I might have to go hang out with my friend Herlock. I might have to.
Sorry to say he's not in any of them.
I'm just so mad that sounds like a porn name. It just sounds just like a porn name. It sounds like a porn name.
Herlock Sholmes gets around. I don't know.
Right?
Maybe detective work, listen, somebody could be a porn performer and a detective.
Sure.
Herlock
There's no limit.
Has a case of his life to solve, and he's not expecting what he's gonna find under the sheets.
Between these black leather pants.
Right? It's all coming together now.
Why?
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. I'm so glad for E3. How about that PC gaming show, huh? Who watched that? I will say, I did see the Tinykin game. Maybe I'm jumping ahead. I'll talk later about Tinykin. Who saw Pioneer? My partner speaks. My partner speaks fluent Russian and speaks Russian at home. I might be getting yelled at later, but Pioneer.
Pioneer?
Baratheon? I don't know.
Looks interesting.
Very Stalker.
What is it?
Very Stalker vibes going on.
Yeah.
Here.
Stalker vibes in it.
It is so. A quick history lesson. I'll try to keep this very brief. Quick history lesson about Stalker. Great game. I loved playing it when it came out. Was a huge success relative to the state of like Eastern European developed games at the time. The team that made it kind of like imploded immediately after it came out and couldn't agree on what to do next, and split off into about 17,000 different developers that all say, whenever they make a new game, they all say like from the creators of Stalker, because that like 3 of them are over here, 4 of them are over here, and 9 of them are over here. And this is one of those. This is in that legacy of like from the creators of Stalker, because some of the creators of Stalker made another game that looks a lot like Stalker. Also, we saw gameplay of Stalker 2 for the first time this year. Also, there's another game in the PC Gaming Showcase that also looks a lot like Stalker. Every so often, you see a game that looks kind of like a blown out, bombed out first-person shooter game set in like 90s to early 2000s post-apocalyptic alternate history Russia, and this is another one of those. It looks maybe a little bit more inventive than some of those in terms of like the art style, but yeah.
The weapon design looks cool. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say really quickly, because we're looking at some of the B-roll for the video, folks, if you're listening to this in the audio form. Every one of these games has a fucked up Ferris wheel. Why is that a thing? Why is that a thing? I've never been to Russia. I don't know if that's a thing.
Well, how better can they communicate that what once was good is now bad than to take the universal symbol of happiness, which is the Ferris wheel, and create a fucked up version of it?
That was a very good point. I stand corrected.
There is a real reason for this, which is that these games, the lineage of the Stalker franchise, beside like ignoring Roadside Picnic and ignoring Stalker, which is the movie based on the book Roadside Picnic, which the game is then loosely based on as well. Ignoring that stuff, the legacy of these games is that they basically take place in a world where a second weird disaster happens around Chernobyl. Chernobyl was near a city in Ukraine called Pripyat. Pripyat had an amusement park, which during in the 1986 like grand opening was canceled because of the Chernobyl incident. So there was a big high-profile amusement park nearby that never actually opened.
I love you for knowing that.
Yeah. Wow, thank you.
That made me very happy. Because that's like a whole bunch of shit about Ferris wheels. It was like, no, well, hold on. Here's the real reason why this is a thing.
I learned
something. Tell you about the man who invented the Ferris wheel, who was actually a radioactive mutant.
I'm very happy. I'm happy. No, that's fucking dope. I don't care. That was great.
Doesn't it feel good to like to learn?
I learned something. You talk shit.
Honestly, it feels great. Steven, thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the hell out of
cool.
Yeah.
So, Steven, are you going to play this game?
I might check it out, honestly. I'm very excited for Stalker 2. And this one actually looks like a more interesting one of these sort of like Stalker lineage games that I've seen in a minute, but also Stalker 2 is coming out, so I don't know. But
this
basically
has like a floating
anytime,
lady.
Yeah, there's a floating lady here. There's some you're talking to her, and there's some dialogue choices. I like the monster design.
Yeah, that does look cool. Yeah.
But I have not played any of these Stalker pseudo sequels that they put out, but I really, really liked Stalker when it came out in, I think, 2008. It was a very formative game for me at the time, and I've kind of chased that high a little bit ever since. And like a lot of people, that's why we keep seeing games like this. Is like Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl is a very unique game that came out at a time where nothing else like it really existed, and I think that imprinted on a lot of people.
Yeah.
What's the hook for Stalker games? Like I know in Metro, it's the you don't have any air kind of deal, and you're always in the sewers and stuff. What was the thing for Stalker? What was the kind of like hook?
Stalker is very much tonally very reminiscent of Metro, or Metro is very reminiscent tonally of Stalker, but Metro was a much more linear first-person story where you're just like going from level to level. Stalker was like an open world game where you could just like you were just dumped into a big area. The only thing that you had was a tattoo on your arm that just said Stalker on it, and then a PDA that said like find the Stalker, kill the Stalker, like something like that. It was honestly like a proto Breath of the Wild in some ways, but like a shooter where it was just like, fucking go nuts. We're dropping you into this world. Here are 1 or 2 tools. Here are a bunch of weird things that can happen in this world that you can stumble onto, and we're not going to tell you no anytime. You could walk from one end of the map to the other without like ever stopping if you're strong enough to get past like the fucking jacked up super soldiers guarding this barricade or whatever. If you're stealthy enough or whatever. You know, and it was just like really, really, really interesting at the time because it was before a lot of games were being that open-ended in that way. And on top of that, had this super cool post-apocalyptic alternate history kind of vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be the reason why I'm excited for Atomic Heart, though. Yeah, I get it.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Good call. Very good call. I love anything that has immersive elements. Or not that I love it, but I love the idea of it, and we'll try anything with immersive elements. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. There's an indie Pikmin called Tinykin. It even sounds like Pikmin. I love the way this looked right away. Like, at first I was like, well, it's just Pikmin. And then within like 30 seconds of watching like all the cute little more platformy elements, because Pikmin is much more of a puzzle game, which I also love. And I adore the original Pikmin and Pikmin 2. And as a good idle thumb, of course, Pikmin 2's multiplayer is still like just all-time incredible game. Yeah, this looks really cute. This looks so cute. It's very like platformery, I think. And yeah, Ka, go ahead, please.
No, I was just gonna say I kind of wish that was your hater voice. It's like this is Pikmin. I want that to be your hater voice so bad.
That's just kind of my voice. It's unfortunately my voice. When I'm imitating anything. Yeah, like the little guy with the little semi undercut, and it's Tinykin, and it's like this nice little animation style, and you know, it looks like you're kind of like throwing your Pikmin at obstacles and using them to make a little ladder and kind of use them to manipulate the environment. It looks cool. This looks really cool.
This is kind of dope. I was a little upset at the fact that bug flew up. And I was like, got all my New York apartment roach PTSD back. And I was like, yo, that's not cool. But this looks fantastic. This looks super dope.
This looks really cute. I'm very excited for this. This is a tiny build, I think. Home,
tiny build?
I believe this is a tiny build joint. It's called Tinykin as well. So I think that's part of the dealio with them. So a lot of cool environments.
This is, tiny build.
Yeah. Tiny build. Yeah, it says there, right there. Tinykin.com, 2022, but nothing more specific than that. It looks like the environment for the people playing along at home. The environment you're in are fully rendered 3D, but you and all your little guys that are running around are all 2D, like Cartoon Network style cartoon people, and that's a really interesting mix that I haven't seen before. It's also one of these like you're very small in a normal sized environment, so you're running around like there's a guitar, but it's an enormous guitar because you're extremely tiny, that sort of thing. But yeah, this is really yeah, you use the strings to bounce on. This has a huge amount of personality.
Yeah, this looks cool.
Yeah,
I'm
excited for this.
I like, one of my favorite things to do in Pikmin is pick up Pikmin or tell Pikmin to go attack a guy, and then just like a stream of little dudes slams into a big monster, and they do that in this trailer, so I'm just down. I'm like, I'm
here. You're here for it. I like that. That's awesome. I did not see much of Citizen Sleeper, but somebody here in the note says it seems cool as hell. Oh yes, this is Sleeper. Sorry, I was thinking of something else. Yeah, this looks rad. Sleeper, Citizen Sleeper.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about it, so I'll try to keep this brief. I also feel like I've just like taken up so much airtime already, but it seems like a narrative-driven game set on like a space station where you are some kind of like drifting person who's been woken up from cryosleep or a robot or something. I actually don't know a ton about it. I emailed the developers to get maybe some more information about it like a couple hours before this started, but haven't heard back quite yet. It is by the same, at least publisher, I think, that made In Other Waters, which was an indie game from a year or two ago.
Yeah.
So it seems like very narrative based. It also reminds me a lot of a game that I did not play, but I heard a lot about called Tharsis, in that it is a narrative game. Yeah, did you play that, Khalif?
I like Tharsis. Tharsis was pretty cool. Yeah,
so this seems like a lot like that.
Mm-hmm. The dice roll kind of mechanic that you kind of play into it, and yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, so it seems like you roll dice, and then like and then the dice numbers become resources, and if you need to like open a door on the spaceship or something like that, you can drop that die into that thing and use that and expend that in order to like get at some food or oxygen or something like that. And it has a extremely unique art style, I think, like a 2D sort of like mid 2000s Image Comics kind of look to it a little bit.
Exactly going to say there's an Image comic I read for a while, and I can't for the life of me think of the name of it, but it looks very, very close to that. On a spaceship, you wake up, there's a bunch of stuff going on with it. It's not the same thing. It just reminds me of it, but very, very, very cool style. Yeah. That's awesome. All right, we have a final segment here, unless there's anything else from the PC Gamer Show. Speak now or forever hold your PC peace. No? Okay.
You hold your PCP?
Your PCPs.
Hold your PCP.
Y'all got PCP for this show? I missed the memo on that.
Yo, Danielle, I'm gonna go lay low, but I need you to hold this for me for a little bit, okay?
Okay. That's good. I'm a true friend. It's all good. All right, we have a very special segment to end our show this evening called Lil Jordo's Retro Announcement Roundup.
It's me. I'm Lil Jordo. I'm here with my retro announcement roundup. This was a surprisingly weird E3 for old video games. To start things off, y'all remember the TurboGrafx?
Yes.
You remember the TurboGrafx? Okay.
I do.
They Limited Run Games is for the first time in English releasing Castlevania Rondo of Blood for the TurboGrafx CD in America in English.
What?
This game,
really?
So Castlevania Rondo of Blood is it, and Symphony of the Night are like, depending on what Castlevania person you're talking to, they will say one of those two games is the best one. It was released on the PC Engine CD and PC Engine CD ROM and PC Engine Duo, but never released in America and was never localized into English until a PSP remake much later gave it an English localization. And
Dracula X Chronicles.
Yeah, Dracula X Chronicles was the name of that PSP version. And Limited Run is putting out a PlayStation 4 compilation of Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood. And in addition to that, they are also going to release that ROM of Rondo of Blood that's in English for the actual TurboGrafx CD.
Wow.
And I saw some people. So in the year of our Lord 2021, a new TurboGrafx CD game was announced at E3, which is super great for me. It's just like biggest smile I could possibly have. It's totally amazing. I saw some people say that might be the only TurboGrafx CD announcement ever at an E3. I didn't do the legwork to see if that's true or not, because they were releasing PC Engine CD-ROM games until like 1995, 1998. And E3 totally would have still existed then, but the TurboGrafx in America had long since died at that point. So that is plausible. I'll if I ever find out either way, I'll tweet about it or something. So that's really cool. Yeah.
Can I ask you an incredibly niche question about this re-release?
That's why I'm here.
Thank you, Jordan. So I played that Dracula X Chronicles PSP release of Rondo of Blood up to level 2, which is where you could drop into a hole, and if you during a boss fight where a boss is chasing you, Crash Bandicoot style, and you have to run away, and if you drop into a specific hole instead of dying, it unlocks a free copy of Castlevania Symphony of the Night on your PSP game. That has a redone localization of that game, which Symphony of the Night famously has the like, "What is a man? Nothing but a little miserable pile of secrets," like that. All of that gone and re-recorded with like more accurate English localization and an English translation. Did they say if it's that localization of that game or if it's the other one?
Well, so. For that PS4 re-release, that's the combo of both Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood. I think I read earlier today that it's going to have both.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, let me actually double check real quick.
We've got live research going on right here.
Live research. This is my job.
Well,
Castlevania Requiem is what the re-release is called. Or it says both titles, according to Wikipedia, both titles are based on the retranslated versions featured in the Dracula X Chronicles.
Okay, so it is that version.
Oh, yeah, but it's the 2D sprite version of Rondo of Blood. So that's a weird choice for them to make, to not have the original dub for Symphony of the Night in there, since that is such a beloved moment in PlayStation 1 video games. But yeah, the timing on this is serendipitous because I think last year, Analog, makers of FPGA based replacement consoles, the Analog NT Mini and the Analog Pocket, which still isn't out yet, but these new consoles that play old games. Last year, they announced the Analog Duo for $200, which is a TurboGrafx Duo, but new, and they're making it instead. And that's actually going to be probably how a lot of people will end up playing this game, because if you want a real TurboGrafx Duo, you're looking at like $450 to $600 in the aftermarket, depending on what condition it's in.
Those things are super expensive.
Yeah, you can get one for like $300 if it doesn't come with controllers or cables. So like that's where that market is at right now. So that's cool. They are also. Do y'all remember when Limited Run brought back Night Trap for modern consoles?
Yeah,
so they're doing that again with Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, which is a PC / 3DO.
Look at Khalif's face at that.
What?
They're doing it again with Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, which, as the trailer says here, was on PC and 3DO back in the day, if you remember 3DO.
Incredible.
Wait, does that have Herlock Sholmes in it?
Herlock Sholmes is not in this one, from what I understand.
Herlock Sholmes, consulting plumber.
I don't know specifically. I think there's a really popular Angry Video Game Nerd episode about this game, because whenever this announcement was made on Twitter, every reply to it was an Angry Video Game Nerd GIF. So we'll find out. But people weren't happy with that re-release of Night Trap, from what I remember.
I did hear that.
It was just pretty bare bones, and like people wanted something a little bit more substantial, considering the legacy of that game in that moment of early 90s video game panic of sexuality and violence in video games and the congressional hearings and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if they do anything else with this. And it'll also just be weird to have a 3DO game on Nintendo Switch. So that's odd. The last couple of things from Lil Jorda's retro announcement roundup. Their Limited Run is also putting out a new physical copies of Zombies Ate My Neighbors for Super NES and Genesis, and which they've been doing this for a minute. They re-released Street Fighter 2 and Lion King, and that may be it. There may be something else that I'm forgetting about. These games are still available. Let's do some real research right now. Going to eBay.com. to look and see how much Zombies Ate My Neighbors cost.
I'm sorry, we're playing if you're not watching the live stream, we're playing the Plumbers Don't Wear a Tie trailer a couple of times. And I swear,
trailer.
And I swear this is some Showtime Skinamax late
1992. Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
my god.
It's
Red Shoe
real.
Diaries kind of shit right now.
It really is. You can get a copy of Zombies Ate My Neighbors for between like $35 and $45, depending on what shape it's in. And so like they're not re-releasing these because they're hard to find. They're re-releasing these because it has some kind of like historical cache, and it comes with a bunch of extra special, like it comes in a new box and all that stuff. So they haven't announced a price for that thing yet, but if it's in line with their other historical re-releases, it'll probably be around $100. Okay. I personally would not spend $100 on Zombies Ate My Neighbors, but you live your life. The last thing, Arcade 1UP, makers of 3/4 scale arcade machines, announced a new Street Fighter cabinet, loosely inspired by the quintessential Big Blue Street Fighter cabinet CPS2 cabinet that you might remember from your childhood if you are of a certain age. And Ren is probably backstage looking at this, has no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. Arcade 1UP is. I wanted to bring this up because Arcade 1UP has been sort of in a weird spot of they have these licensing deals with Capcom and Namco to get like Galaga and Pac-Man and stuff like that, and they are trying to come up with as many different ways of reselling the same 30 video games as possible. And so this has what's in this thing? All the versions of Street Fighter 2 that you would care about. So like the 4 main ones. Darkstalkers, Darkstalkers Revenge, Darkstalkers 3, Knights of the Round Eco Fighters, which is an interesting inclusion.
Oh wow.
Saturday Night Slam Masters and Capcom Sports Club and Muscle Bomber Duo. So there are some new kind of deep dive releases in this thing that make it stand out a little bit more than a bunch of their other fighting game cabinets, which they've got, a lot. Like they sell several other cabinets that have all these Street Fighters and these Darkstalker games in there. But Eco Fighters is a really interesting pull. It's a side-scrolling shoot 'em up that was unique at the time for it's like heavy, as the name implies, it's heavy environmental activism message. And also your aiming is on a full 360-degree basis, and you hold down a button to rotate the arm that has your gun on it. So it plays really differently from other shooters of the era. I know people really love Saturday Night Slam Masters. I've never played it, and I'd never heard of Muscle Bomber Duo before. So that's cool that they're kind of digging a little deeper into their licensing well to find some stuff to put on these cabinets. I wanted to bring it up for that reason, because those games are interesting, and also because they are getting closer to making their arcade machines look like what you remember them looking like, which has been the problem with Arcade 1UP for the entire time that it's existed, is that they've used these cookie cutter templates and just put different art on them. And then between the Mortal Kombat one that came out last year or earlier this year and this thing, they're getting closer to looking like what you remember them looking like. It's still not 1-to-1. And in the trailer that they put out, they're really careful to not show how hunched over the people are to play this thing. Because when they say 3/4 scale, they actually mean 3/5 scale. And like, if you're not sitting, if you don't have like a stool or something, it's kind of uncomfortable to play these. But yeah, it's neat. I hope that a third party enters this space of reproduction arcade. Well, there is a third party, but I won't get into it. I hope that someone who isn't Arcade 1UP or SNK gets into this space, because Arcade 1UP makes cool stuff, but these cabinets run for between $350 and $500 depending on what's in them, and you get like 6 or 12 games if it's one of the really good ones. A lot of these cabinets have like 3 to 5 games and cost like $400, and that is so much money. Especially for one, you have to assemble this thing yourself, and 2, from what I've heard, the sticks and buttons are not as good as you would want at a $400 asking price.
Ooh,
and I should be clear,
rough.
it is rough, and I should be clear, they haven't announced the price for this thing yet. It just has like a email me when pre-orders go up button.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess this is going to be probably around $400. So Arcade 1-Up has is like an interesting proposition, but it's a little bit harder of a sell just for the quality that you're getting and the labor that goes into putting it together. And then SNK makes a product that I own, and that is more expensive. It's $500, but it has 50 games in it, which is a better value proposition. But SNK's ownership situation right now makes it kind of dicey to be a part of that scene if you care about that stuff.
Fair.
And so I'm hoping, and like SNK has an advantage because it has the rights to all those games, right? So it can put 50 games in a box and sell it to you, whereas Arcade 1-Up has to give Capcom a quarter every time that it sells one of these, or however much their licensing deal is. And exactly. And Danielle, for the people playing along at home, Danielle is pantomiming putting a quarter into an arcade machine. Which for Ren, you used to have to do that. They had these things called arcades that had big machines in them like this that played video games, and you had to put a quarter in it. It was kind of like a microtransaction. We didn't call them that yet, though, because Microsoft hadn't invented that term for horse armor yet.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think it's cool that Arcade 1-Up is still out there doing it. I think it's cool that they're like purposefully making this look like an iconic cabinet from the 90s, and I hope that this space continues to have a strong and interested niche in it, because before I got this SNK thing, I looked into getting a real arcade machine, and it's a total nightmare. Like, the market is super inflated now. Like, if you want a game that's worth having, you're going to spend like $1,500 or $2,000 on one of these machines.
God.
They weigh several hundred
expensive.
pounds. Yeah, they're super expensive.
That's like rent. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, like you can spend a month's rent on an arcade machine that I guarantee will break when you move it into your apartment. And
man.
like, you have to know how to degauss a CRT. You have to these were not, unless it's a Capcom Play System or a JAMA board or something. A lot of these cool games that you would want are things that are bespoke motherboards. And so like, if something on it breaks, you have to go like find the replacement parts are a nightmare. So these things are really cool. I hope they keep making them. This is a smaller announcement from this team than what you might see at E3 a couple of years ago when they were kind of spooling up. But that's the story of this whole E3 to begin with. And yeah,
a little bit.
Thus concludes Lil Jordo's retro announcement roundup. I'm Chip Whitman. Thank you for I'm just excited that they're putting out Turbo Duo games still. Like, I hope that's a new thing, that like, because so many TurboGrafx games are beyond the fact that it's in English, it's a localized version of that for the first time. TurboGrafx games are super expensive, and the ones that you want are even more expensive than that. And so that's a place where like modern, well-made reproductions, there's actually like a viable market there, I think, for that stuff, because otherwise you're going to go on eBay and spend $200 just for a game, and nobody wants to live like that.
No,
not for Bonk's Adventure. Nobody wants that.
No, I love Bonk. He's a great little guy, but he's not a $200 little guy.
Nah,
it's not a $200 adventure. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like maybe Bonk is all right, but like his adventure,
I mean, if you had leather pants on, I might spend $150. But that's
right.
He's got sunglasses. What do you think?
It's true.
Did I do anything for you, College? Sunglasses?
Called? There were like special shades, right? In that Monster Hunter thing, there was like a cool shade thing.
Yeah.
There was a cool shade
name.
Yeah, they always have.
They do.
Yeah.
They're always called like the Dragon King Patch Alpha Plus and stuff like that in those cosmetics. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, for Robert Baratheon. Robert Baratheon, all of his best scenes in Game of Thrones wore sunglasses. It really conveyed just how like powerful he was as a character, and like how much he didn't care. He would wear them indoors by firelight. It was great.
He was wearing leather pants under his breeches and robes or whatever he wears. So like,
we just couldn't see them
it's like the
as in the audience. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but
he knows
knew
that they're there. Yeah.
Exactly.
It
makes him feel powerful.
We've solved a lot of mysteries here today on Night Trio of Hot Game Summer. And I guess that's about it, right, folks? I guess we're wrapping up now. I guess we're about to say goodnight to Hot Game Summer Night Trio. Of course, you should stay tuned to fanbyte.com. Stay tuned like it's a radio. You know what I'm saying? Like the dials, the wheels of steel, the ones and twos. Of course. Fanbyte.com. That's how the internet works. It's all radio. It's all radio computers. I played Disco Elysium. I know how it works, so we all know how it works. So let's talk real briefly here about where we can find each other online, just in case anybody doesn't know. Khalif, where can people find you online?
Kajakins on Twitter, KHJHKINS. You can find also at Spawn on Me and at twitch.tv/Spawn on Me is where you'll be able to see the live shows that we do for Spawn on Me on the internet. So go check that stuff out. And on Fanbyte.com.
Hey, Khalif, I also have a question about Spawn on Me real quick.
Yes.
Where can I, as a listener, this is a serious question, actually. Can I, as a listener of Spawn on Me, buy that shirt you're wearing right now that says Spawn on Me on it?
You can buy this shirt. It is one of our lovely pieces of merch. This is from our old store. This is from the Som bit.ly/Som merch. That's where you can get the old gear. Bit.ly/Som gear is where you can find the newest merch. So go cop that stuff and help me buy some black leather pants.
Hell yeah.
That wasn't a plug either. I just like that shirt. I kind of want one.
Not sponsored.
Really awesome.
I got you. I'll send you one. I got you.
Thank you.
And we all set. Thank you so much. And thank you so much again for joining us, Khalif. We always appreciate it. I always appreciate
Love
it.
y'all.
I love being on a
Always
show with
wanna
you.
rock
It's
with
really
y'all.
fun.
Same here.
Oh, good vibes. I love the good vibes. Jordan, where can we find you online?
You can find me online at twitter.com/Jordan_Mallory. You can also, if you care about old games and the weird parts of that whole ecosystem, you can follow my Goodwill Finds account, which is at Goodwill Goblin. It's been kind of a little less active during E3, but I post a bunch of crazy stuff shows up on that Goodwill auction site pretty regularly, and I like to post it on there. And you can listen to all the shows that I produce at fanbyte.com/podcasts or go to podcastnet.work.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I also love being on a show with you, Jordan. It's so long in between. It's been a while. So
I know. Yeah, it's been. I'm so deep into the podcast mines that it just takes 6 months to even send a signal back to the surface.
Oh no. And now I'm a little bit sad. I'm like, we should send some light down for y'all. We should send some.
No, it's great.
Like,
I have a very nice apartment down in there. I got HBO. There's a popcorn machine.
All right.
Yeah, it's all set.
Well, that's good. I guess you can watch Game of Thrones. I don't know why I'm mentioning Game of Thrones. I'm so sorry. I don't even like it that much. It's fine. Thank you, Jordan, for being here. You're wonderful. Also
Absolutely.
wonderful. Steven, where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Steven Strum, StevenStrom. You can watch a lot of the streams that I've been doing on twitch.tv/Fanbyte, otherwise known as bongodingus.com. Really great URL that we still have for that. That's mostly what I'm doing these days, I think. So yeah, hop on those. Watch some stuff. Listen to Channel F every Wednesday. There, I think, is when the episodes go live on your podcast catcher of choice. Listen to 99 Potions, if you will, where I get to talk with my RPG pals about various role playing games.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. I was going to say I am on a show with you pretty often, but it's still a pleasure, and it's always a pleasure. And thank you so much. I think among all of us, we have done all of the things that we do. We got podcasts, we got Twitch on there, which people might be watching or you might be listening. In case either of those things is not true, of course, podcastnet.work, which I think Jordan mentioned, fanbyte.com, Hot Game Summer. I think we got it all. Did we miss anything? I think we got it all.
I think that's it.
I think we did it all. Oh my God. Thank you all so very much. Thank you if you are listening or if you're watching. Thank you for being here. And until next time, I wish you a fond farewell and a hot game summer.